Hey guys, I think we're all set here for our live Q&A. Let me just make sure that it's working. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's see. Oh, it's got my head cut off just a little bit here. Okay, I think we are all set, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. This is our first live Q&A, so I'm excited to be doing it. I got some great questions. I've got 7 questions so far from you guys, and hopefully a couple more will come in. We're only going to be working on this for about 15 minutes or so, so I might not have time for some questions that come rolling in during, but I'll do my very best to make time for them. As you probably noticed when you started watching this live video, it gave you the option to subscribe to our future live videos, and I hope you'll take the chance to do that because we hope to be doing these a little bit more frequently. And so if you subscribe, you'll be able to get notifications anytime that we do a live video. I also just want to apologize. I know my voice is a little bit quieter today. I normally try to speak up a little bit, but I do have a bit of a sore throat, so I'll do my best. Hope you guys can hear me okay. Comment if you can't hear me very well, let me know, and I'll do my best to, like I said, try to speak up a bit and make sure that you guys can hear me okay. Let's see. So yeah, be sure to subscribe so you get notifications for the future videos. And other than that, I'm going to jump right in. Like I said, I've only got about 15 minutes, so I want to start. So this first one is from an anonymous person. They asked, other than house training, what's the most important thing I can train my young puppy to do? Now, when you say young puppy, I'm going to assume under 4 months old, because our goals and expectations change a little bit at around 4 months old. So with young puppies under 4 months old, believe it or not, a lot of folks are pretty surprised when I tell them that the most important thing that you can be doing with a puppy under 4 months old is not working on sit, down, come, all that kind of stuff. That stuff is important, and I encourage you to work on it. But the absolute most important thing that you should be working on right now is socializing and desensitizing your puppy. Getting your puppy used to new sights, new sounds, new smells. All those types of things are going to be the absolute most crucial thing for you. We get dogs that come to us all the time, a year and a half old, that their biggest problem is that they weren't properly socialized when they were younger. And so then they come to us, and it doesn't matter if they can sit or lay down or roll over if they're terrified of the rest of the world. They're afraid of strangers coming into the house, they're afraid to go for a walk, the garbage truck scares them, all those types of things scare them to death. And so again, like I said, the obedience doesn't matter because the behavior needs so much work. So you can do yourself a huge favor. When a dog comes to us that's a year old, that's just kind of wild and rambunctious, but still very social, very accepting of the outside world, it's no problem for us to train them obedience at any age. But young puppies have a very critical socialization window, and it closes sometime around 14 to 16 weeks. Some people say as young as 12 weeks, but I've seen different studies say 14 to 16 weeks. They've got this really critical socialization window that starts to close as they get older, and so you've got a small period of time to be able to squeeze all of that in. Now, when they're older than 16 weeks old, it doesn't mean that you can't still focus on those things. It just means that you have to spend a lot more time. You get a lot less reward for your efforts. You're going to have to put in a lot more effort in order to get the same reward. When we're working with a 10-week-old puppy that's afraid of something, we can overcome that really, really fast. When we're working with a 1-year-old dog, it takes us a lot longer. All right. Let's see. Next up, question number 2 is from Brandy. How do I keep my dog from stealing stuff off the counters, or counter surfing as I typically call it? So dogs stealing stuff off the counter is pretty typical. It's also a sign that maybe we need to do a little bit more foundation work on our relationship with the dog. If they're trying to do stuff behind our back, it might mean that they don't respect us quite as much. So I'd encourage you to go over to our blog and look up one of our blogs. It's called the No Free Lunch Program. And what we talk about in that blog is how to get your dog to respect you a little bit more. By controlling the assets that are most important to a dog, like food, affection, toys, things like that, I'm not saying that we don't give those things to the dog, but what we do is we control those things, so that way the dog is going to look at us like a leader instead of just somebody that's like the butler that just comes and delivers the food for free. So that's step one, is work on that relationship. Make sure your dog is viewing you as the leader, as the boss, instead of just the butler that delivers all the food and stuff. Step two, if you've got a dog that's still being kind of sneaky about it, is you need to be sneaky. And what I mean by that is you need to try to set that up so you can catch the dog in the act. You also need to take a period of time where you're going to be extra strict with yourself about making sure that you're not doing anything that would allow the dog to get any satisfaction from stealing stuff off the counter. So what I mean by that is you need to take a couple of weeks where you make sure that you're super, super strict about not leaving anything on the counters. And during that couple of weeks, you're going to be setting the dog up without them knowing it. So a couple ways that I like to do that. One is I like to take a spoon and put a little bit of peanut butter or something else that's sticky but still yummy up on the counter, a metal spoon on above a tile floor. So then what can happen is if your dog tries to steal that and you're in another room, you're going to hear it and you can go instantly correct the dog. And so the dog's going to learn, oh man, it's like they have eyes in the back of their head. The other thing I'll do if the dog is still sneaky past that exercise is I will set the dog up and I'll use, just like I'm doing right now, how I'll, with a Facebook Live video, you can FaceTime yourself or Skype yourself or something like that, and I'll set up my phone to spy on the dog. So I'll leave my phone set up in the kitchen, and then I'll go on my laptop and access Skype or whatever, so I can watch my dog from another room. Because if the dog's being sneaky about it, if they're doing it in plain sight, you just need to correct them and get after them, and then they're going to learn, okay, not to do that. But if they're doing it behind your back, you need to be sneakier than the dog. You need to go and set up that camera, watch them from another room. When they go and try to steal something off the counter, boom, you go in and correct them. And again, what starts to happen is the dog starts being like, man, they have eyes in the back of their head. So they start thinking that maybe I can't outsmart them, maybe I can't just wait until they're out of the room, and that's going to prevent them from doing it. If the dog knows that they're not going to get anything out of it, then they're going to quit doing it. And that's why it's so important that for a couple weeks you're really strict with yourself about not leaving anything out, and then you set them up to catch them on purpose. You're really sneaky, and you set it up to catch them on purpose. And after 2 or 3 times, the dogs start saying, man, this isn't going to work. I can't sneak up on them anymore. So they've got eyes in the back of their head. It's just not working. All right, let's see. Had a question going back to question 1 about socializing a puppy. Kristen asked, is the socialization different if they come from a shelter already 3 to 4 months old? No, you still need to be socializing the heck out of them at 3 to 4 months old. Like I said, if they're in that 3 to 4 month range, your window is tiny right now. You've only got a couple weeks before your job is going to get much harder with the socialization. So you need to jump on it right away, Kristen, if you think they're in that 3 to 4 month range. I know it's hard to know like how old they are exactly if you adopted them from a shelter, but still, you just need to jump on it right away. Also, if you guys will email me, any of you guys that are interested in socializing, I've got a free socialization checklist that we use here at Top Dog. It's our goal with every puppy that we're working with that we try to get them to check off about 70 to 90% of the things on this list. And it's just a big list of things to remind you, like I mentioned earlier, like garbage trucks, skateboards, bicycles, just things that you should get your dog around. Email me and I will send that to you for free. It's a 4 or 5 page list that we put together of just things that you should be introducing your dog to before they hit that 16-week-old period, which is about 4 months old. Good question though, Kristen. All right, let's see. I think that's the only one that's come in while we've been doing it. Next up, I've got from Kristen again. So number 3 from Kristen on Instagram. She said, we recently got a puppy and she has taken to aggressive play when she sometimes bites my husband and I or our furniture. How should we address that? So oftentimes, and now I know that Kristen's puppy is probably 3 to 4 months old because of her question just now on Facebook, oftentimes when I've got puppies that are overly bitey or mouthing a lot, things like that, most of the time that's due to them not getting enough nap time. So just like my 3-year-old son, he gets the wildest and craziest right before he needs a nap. Most folks don't think that that's the same with puppies, and with puppies, what they'll do is they will think, man, the puppy's wild and crazy right now. I think they need more playtime. I think they need more exercise. And the puppy gets wilder and crazier. Believe it or not, a 3 to 4 month old puppy needs to be sleeping a whole bunch. And so that nap time needs to take place. Typically, I recommend in a crate, in a room, away from you, so that way they can totally settle down, relax, and take a little nap. Again, that's just super crucial. So many times I get folks that are like, okay, how do I correct the biting right now? And they don't realize that it's actually, you need to be doing something else entirely in order to correct the biting. It's not about correcting in the moment right there. They need to be taking a nap in another room so they can completely sleep it off and get a little bit more rest. Like I said, just like with toddlers, I don't know if you've got kids yet, Kristen, but you'll find the same thing is true with toddlers, is that they get the wildest and most rambunctious right before they crash. Puppies do the same thing. They get really bitey, really mouthy, really jumpy right before they crash. As far as chewing on the furniture, that can oftentimes still be related, but oftentimes furniture is also related to just boredom. And we're going to talk about some toys that are going to prevent that. Now, Kristen had a two-part question. She also says that she can't be outside yet because she doesn't have all of her vaccines. And I want to address that just really quick too. So that is a really common misbelief. Yes, you need to be cautious about where you take her, but it is a horrible idea not to be taking her outside right now. Because like I said, you've got a tiny little socialization window that you need to squeeze in before she starts coming into more adolescence and maturity. And so you need to make sure that you are utilizing that socialization window as much as possible. So you need to take calculated risks. No, I don't want you taking her to the park or Petco or PetSmart where she's going to be around lots of germs unless she's riding in some kind of wagon or something like that. But yes, you do need to take her to areas where it's a lot lower risk, where maybe there's not going to be a lot of other dogs around or things like that. She does need to be outside and experiencing things. The other thing to keep in mind is that most of the pathogens that dogs can get, most of the harmful ones, can't survive very long on concrete. They survive really well in grass and dirt and stuff. But if you're taking your puppy out on the sidewalks and stuff like that, your chances of her contracting something are much, much lower. As long as she's on track with her vaccinations, as long as she's healthy, eating, drinking, all that kind of stuff, your risks are going to be super, super low of getting anything. The primary disease that most people are worried about is parvo. And yes, you do need to be careful of it. You do need to make sure you're avoiding high traffic areas with other dogs and animals. But at the same time, you can't risk not having her out and doing that socializing and desensitizing. Again, email me and I'll send you that list to make sure that you're on the right track with that. And then Kristen also asked about a leash on her dog. We're going to come to that in just a minute. Rebecca had a question about that, so we're going to come back to that in number 5. Number 4 was another one that was texted in from somebody that wanted to stay anonymous. Says, how can I train my dog to stop sniffing other dogs' butts? And the short answer to that is you shouldn't train your dog to stop sniffing other dogs' butts. There's nothing wrong with your dog sniffing another dog's butt. It is actually 100% natural. I want you to let your dog sniff other dogs' butts. That's the equivalent of you and I shaking hands when we meet. Believe it or not, it is actually much more unnatural for dogs to come up and meet face to face. That is a much more dominant type thing, and you're much more likely to have a negative interaction if you let dogs come up and meet face to face than if you let them meet face to butt. So, sniffing butts, totally acceptable. The only time it's rude is if it gets super long. That'd be the equivalent of me shaking your hand for a super long time. So if I were sitting there shaking your hand for 15 seconds, you would want to pull away, right? Same thing, if your dog is over sniffing and is kind of socially awkward, you need to go ahead and interrupt. Usually the way I interrupt is I just walk right between the two of them to kind of break that focus, so they'll like look away from each other, or the dog that's sniffing a lot will look away. If you try to pull the dogs back, sometimes that can create tension, and again, you're going to end up with dogs that have a negative interaction that could end up snapping at each other, barking or growling. So the better method is just kind of walk right in between them. They can sniff butts about a little bit longer than, like I said, a normal handshake. So about 3 to 5 seconds is appropriate. If they sniff longer than that, you can start to build tension, and that's where I'm just going to walk right down the middle of them to kind of break them up a little bit. Again, you don't want to pull them apart because that can create added tension as well, so avoid that. Good question. All right, Rebecca Wood asks, how do I best train our 5 to 6-year-old rescue to walk politely on the leash? He has perfect house manners, but I don't think he'd ever had the need for a leash. He's slightly better than he was when we adopted him 18 months ago, but still pulls horribly and lunges, especially at rabbits and bikes. So a little bit of this is going to overlap with one of Kristen's earlier questions about introducing her puppy to the leash. Kristen, with a younger puppy, like I said, we can usually overcome stuff pretty quickly because puppies just desensitize to stuff pretty easily. So for you, Kristen, what I want you to start with is just having your puppy drag the leash around the house. Go out to the dollar store and buy the thinnest, lightest leash you can find, and have the puppy just start dragging it around the house so they can start getting used to that sensation a little bit. From there, you guys' steps are going to get a little bit more similar. I want you to find your dog's favorite treat, as long as it's small. It can't be like a big old giant bone or something like that. My favorite treat to use with dogs is usually cut up hot dogs or cheese, and I like to cut it up really, really small. And what I do with those treats is I use those to reward the dog for walking politely beside me. So, for example, Rebecca, you're going to be taking a little bit different direction than Kristen. It sounds like your problem is that your dog likes to pull way ahead of you a lot, lunge and things like that. So what I want you to do is go somewhere very sterile, like your backyard, or even starting in your living room would be fine. And I want you to be walking around your living room or your backyard, and what I want you to do is reward every time your dog is in like a little bubble right beside you where you want them to be. And right now, what most folks do, they take their dog out for a walk and they're just pulling their dog back and pulling their dog back. And they're not showing the dog what they want it to do. Instead, they're just trying to correct the dog into the right position. If all you ever do is just keep correcting the dog into the right position, it's going to be really hard to teach them. Most people, just like dogs, learn better by being shown the right thing to do. So I want you to show the dog where you want them first. Reward for being in that little bubble. Reward for being in that little bubble. Now from there, it's something that we'd probably have to address via a Skype lesson or something like that, where I could work with you guys one-on-one, because from there it depends a little bit more on a case-by-case basis what direction we need to go. Some dogs, you reward them when they're in that little bubble and they just get it. They're like, oh, this is cool, I want to stay in this bubble because that's when I get those treats. Other dogs, we have to move on, and frequently this is the more common thing, we have to move on to some form of correction, right? So we teach them first and then we move on to correction second. And so that's something where we do it on a case-by-case basis. I don't like just applying like a one-size-fits-all correction to dogs, because that just doesn't work. Dogs are not cookie cutters, so it's not appropriate to treat them like that. So we might need to do like a Skype lesson or something. You can email me about some of those options as well. But start with that. Start by rewarding when they're in that little bubble. Same thing for you, Kristen. Reward when they're in that little bubble, and then they start getting the hang of it, and they're going to be more likely to stay in that bubble and listen to you a little bit better right there. Let's see if we've had any more questions come in while I've been talking. Nope, we're good. Okay, next question we've got is from Brandy. How do you desensitize your dog to the vacuum cleaner? Great question, Brandy. This is one that I had to recently go through with Zeno. I do need to pick it up a little bit. We're almost out of time. The simple answer is I like to use the place command, and then I like to build in layers. So, Brandy, I know you already have taught the place command to your dog. You've got an extra challenge because your dog's a border collie. Border collies love to chase things with wheels, right? I've seen more border collies chasing cars down the road than I see any other breed. So you're going to have a little bit of an extra challenge, but it's still totally doable. You're going to put them on place, you're going to put Lacey on place, and you're going to get out the vacuum. You're going to start with the vacuum turned off, just like we do everything else. We're going to do it in layers. You're going to start with the vacuum turned off and probably 20 feet away from her, all the way across the living room. I want you to just roll the vacuum 2 or 3 feet. She stays on place. Good. Go reward her. Then you're going to bring the vacuum a little bit closer. Same thing. Move it a little bit more. Boom. Go reward her. Now, there's a lot of trainers out there that'll say, oh man, that's crazy. Like, you can't, using place, that's not really training or changing the dog's behavior. All you're doing is just like assigning the dog to do something else. You're not really changing the behavior, and I think that's total baloney, and I can prove it with Zeno. Zeno loved to chase the vacuum cleaner when he was a puppy. I used the place command with him, and like I said, I just gradually broke down those thresholds. Now Zeno can be free in the living room while I'm vacuuming. He's going to move around the vacuum when I'm vacuuming and stuff like that. You just gradually get those thresholds closer and closer. Then you start all the way back over across the living room and you turn the vacuum on. And again, you just start 2 or 3 seconds, turn it off. She stays on place, she stays calm, go reward her. One just really important side note with that I wish I could be there when you're doing it, is that you need to make sure that you're rewarding when she's calm. If she just physically stays on place, that's not quite enough. You need to wait until she's calmed down a little bit, okay? So once she's calm and settled in on place, then you give the reward. Good question. All right, that is it. We are all out of time, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I just want to remind you that we're going to be doing this more often, so make sure that you subscribe so you get a pop-up whenever we're doing these videos. Also, I think I just wanted to mention, our next First Friday event, for those of you guys that are local, make sure that you come in Friday, September 1st at Moon Tower Pizza Bar. We're going to be doing our next First Friday event. That's where we do a free training class in Old Town Burleson, and then I buy everybody pizza. That's open for all of our clients, whether I trained your dog 10 years ago or 10 days ago. If you've gone through training with us with your dog and your dog's still alive, you can bring your dog out to that free training class and free pizza. We have a great time. I want to break last month's record. Last month we set a record, 21 dogs. I want to try to break that record this month. I want to get it to the point where we have to reserve the entire patio at Moon Tower Pizza Bar. So again, that's Friday, September 1st at 7 o'clock. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Comment down below. Let us know what you liked about it, and maybe include a question for our next live Q&A session. I'm Adam from Top Dog. Thanks for watching.